Hello, we're at Formnext and I'm here with Ralf Dooyke from Creabis. And, thank you for having me here at your booth. Maybe it's nice if you introduce yourself and your company.
Okay, well, thanks for having this interview with you. I think it's always very important to do things like that and broadcast news and impressions. So yeah, my name is Ralf Dooyke. I'm running Creabis since 2011, and in the industry I'm quite long time already, which means I started in 1995. So more or less I'm now in the industry for 27 years. And Creabis again started 2011, and the goal for Creabis was more or less to move additive manufacturing really into pre-serial and serial applications, because the company I was at before was mainly active in the area of rapid prototyping.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit about the volume which you are processing?
Well, just talking about Creabis, it's something like 120,000 parts in a half a year. So it's more or less roughly 250,000 of parts per year.
It's pretty significant,
and
yes.
Of course, it starts with part that big, and it ends up with part up to 1 meter or complete bumpers for cars when we are at some point again back into prototyping.
One theme I spotted, and I have a specific interest in it, of course, is automation as well.
Automation, I think, is something. It is a real big trend. You see everywhere. You see it across the large frame machines, but you can also see it already on these, let's say, cheaper FFF printers, because they already talk about automation. So taking out the platforms on by a robot or something like that. So automation is a real thing. And this is also something which is very important for Creabis, because
that was what I was wondering, indeed.
But and by this, it's probably not that I run in here and say, oh, the whole world is full of automation. It's really what we did over the last 2 to 3 years inside Creabis. So we established an ERP MES system to more or less have control of these 120,000 parts each half a year, and we, in addition, probably I am allowed to mention,
of course
we also introduced beginning of this year the AM-Flow, the vision technology, to be really able to process our parts and really identify them and put them into the right bin for the next process step. And that's a very important point for us, because for us it is a way forward into a paperless production.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you on board there. You made the decision, pretty early indeed. What were the considerations when you decided to opt in with AM-Flow?
Well, definitely there are two things which made me make this decision. First of all is that after you have introduced an ERP MES system, looking how you can make use of it also in production, not just by software but also real physically, is the next step. And the second thing definitely is it's these days, especially in Germany, it's real hard to find people. So getting people is a real issue, and having machines that can also work at night, can work Saturday, Sunday, it's far more easy. And especially with this COVID crisis, we all know the discussions about working from home, about being ill, being out for 7, 8, 9, 10 days, something like that.
Sorting parts is something you can't do from home, right?
Exactly. So it's something you have to be there, or you have to have a machine to do it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing definitely is that, we have, I think inside Creabis we have something like 5 to 6 different processes that happen after the parts come off the machine. And all these things these days are written on some type of paperwork. And especially if you move into serial production, it means that you do not produce one part or one job, one part, and it's done. You have 20, 30, 40 jobs running over something like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So this means you really have to understand, and you have to know at each point of the production how many parts did I already produce, to make sure that all the parts go into the right processes. And you can imagine, if you do for each of the jobs you build a new set of paperwork, then after something like 5, 6 weeks you end up with 100 sheets of paper And at some point, somebody puts the first paper behind and the one from the back on the top, and then you say, hey, where am I? And this is really something that already now, after half a year in using the AM flow machine, we can say this is not going to happen anymore. We know exactly at the moment how many parts did we get out of a job. We know exactly which post-process do the parts have to go in. We know exactly, okay, out of this last job this still happens, I had 5 parts of breakage. So at the machine I can automatically reassign them, and the operators already see, okay, I have to rebuild 5 of these parts, and it's making life more easy. So yeah, the goal still is to more or less have a paperless production sometime next year, beginning of next year. And the AM flow is definitely the central part of it.
Hey, and please be brutally honest, but how was the cooperation so far?
Fun.
Oh, pleased to hear that. Tell me more.
No, it was real fun. What we definitely saw is, of course, when you try to connect a machine that has its own software with an ERP MAS system that is definitely developed by other people without having something like AM flow in mind, then you always run into problems of how do these different pieces of software interact, and definitely. AM flow at any time was always able to pick out our needs, and sometimes even faster than we expected found solutions for the existing problems. So this is why I say it was real fun working. It was not, of course there was also some pressure, there were some things that did not go wrong first step, but that's absolutely normal. But I think in this business it's not important that things go right the first time. It's important that you learn from what you have seen, and that you have people picking up real fast what the new needs and the new interests are. And this is definitely, this really happened.
Happy to hear that, honestly, yes. Hey, another theme I'd like to discuss with you is quality. How important is quality for you and for Creabis?
Well, as you can imagine, when we talk about additive manufacturing for serial products, we don't talk anymore about prototypes where a line or, well, the part broke, so I simply glue it because it will anyway be in the bin tomorrow. This is something which is no more acceptable to the customer. So quality is definitely an absolute must. And this has influence on the complete processes. And here, it's also something I already learned in the past when we used to work for the Formula One industry. Because this is also a high pressure industry, wind tunnel testing, and there was also always a real massive request for quality. And a lot of people inside Creabis already were with us at this former company. So the mindset
is there at least.
The mindset is there, and we just simply need to readjust it. And so quality is very important.
Any developments you think, you'd like to see on the front of quality the upcoming years?
Yeah, definitely. The thing that we are looking for is, because that's a problem at the moment. Yes, we have a machine at the moment that can identify a part. But if you have a white part and with a thin area, and this thin area broke at some point, but with a very straight brake line, you will not recognize it firsthand. And it is really something which, and you have the problem is we have various geometries, and the person at the machine does not really know what the geometry is supposed to look like. And so if you have a clear brake line and you don't have something standing out, then you say, okay, looks okay, not a problem at all. And at the end, the customer comes back and says, hey, part looks good, but here are 5 centimeters missing, and nobody recognized it. Because you cannot, if you do 120,000 parts, you cannot open up for each part a viewer and check, hey, what is it supposed to look like? So definitely we are in need of automation also for this.
Well, no, we recognize indeed need for 100% inspection. That's where, with the current process capability, that's also what we think that we need. So,
well, and definitely 100% inspection rate already goes definitely above what is normally needed. Because normally customers are happy with something like 10, 15, 20% of parts being inspected. But having the chance to do a 100% inspection is, of course, simply perfect.
Great. Nice. I want to close with a question. On your wish list for automation, what would be next? Not only from Aemflow, but in general.
Well, the next thing is, and I already discussed it with people at Aemflow, is definitely when you do all these things, then the next thing is definitely a storage system which is directly connected to the machine. So again, if you have all these bins with all the different parts, they need to be stored somewhere, and they need to be stored in a way that they are easy to identify. And best is even if you have a robot that if the machine says, okay, I've got this in this order, then the robot goes to your storage system, just picks out the bin with the parts that have been manufactured before, gets it to the machine, parts are put in, and then the bin goes back where it should be stored. So that's more or less the next thing I'm dreaming of.
If I show that to you on the next Form Next, I can interview you again?
Definitely yes,
okay,
no question at all.
Thanks a lot, Ralf. Thanks for having us here.
You're welcome. Thank you.